In war, a retreating enemy is supposed to be a victory. Capturing ground, seizing positions, occupying trenches that the enemy has abandoned. These are the metrics by which Russian commanders measure success and report progress to their superiors in Moscow. Every meter of Ukrainian soil that Russian forces occupy is another line in a report, another pin on a map, another piece of evidence that the offensive is working. Russian soldiers who advance into empty Ukrainian trenches feel a surge of relief and triumph. The position they were told to take has been taken without a fight. The enemy has fled. The ground is theirs. This instinct, the compulsion to occupy, to claim, to touch and inspect everything the enemy left behind, is one of the oldest vulnerabilities in warfare. And days ago, on the Eastern Front, Ukrainian forces exploited it with lethal, methodical precision. Ukrainian commanders in one sector of the line executed a staged withdrawal from a forward position, a section of trench and bunker complex that had been under increasing Russian pressure for weeks. The withdrawal was carefully planned to appear genuine. Soldiers were seen on Russian drone feeds packing equipment. Vehicles arrived and departed carrying personnel and supplies. And over the course of 48 hours, the visible activity at the position gradually decreased until, on the morning of the operation, the position appeared abandoned. The trenches were empty. The bunkers were dark. A Ukrainian BTR-4 armored vehicle sat at an angle near the main bunker, apparently damaged and left behind in the haste of retreat. Scattered around the position were the telltale signs of a unit that had pulled out under pressure. Ammunition crates stacked near fighting positions, personal gear abandoned in bunkers, a portable radio still emitting a low-power signal on a known Ukrainian frequency. Everything the Russians could see was real, and everything they would touch was designed to kill them. The preparation. Ukrainian combat engineers spent 3 nights preparing the position before the staged withdrawal. Their work was invisible. Every device was concealed. Every trigger was hidden. Every trap was designed to appear as if it were simply equipment left behind by soldiers who departed in a hurry. The BTR-4 was the centerpiece. The vehicle had sustained genuine damage weeks earlier. A drone strike had disabled its engine and punctured the hull, making it inoperable. Rather than recover it to the rear for repair, Ukrainian engineers converted it into the largest booby trap on the position. They packed the vehicle's interior with approximately 40 kilograms of plastic explosive, surrounded by scrap metal, nuts, bolts, and ball bearings that would serve as improvised shrapnel. The charge was connected to a remote detonation system, a radio-controlled trigger that could be activated by a Ukrainian operator from a safe distance. The device was concealed beneath the vehicle's bench seats and under scattered equipment, uniforms, ration boxes, and tools, that gave the interior the appearance of a vehicle that had been hastily abandoned rather than carefully prepared. The ammunition crates near the fighting positions were rigged with pressure-release detonators, devices that armed when the weight of the crate held down a spring-loaded trigger. As long as the crate sat undisturbed, the trigger remained compressed and the device was inert. The moment someone lifted the crate, the natural action of any soldier inspecting abandoned supplies, the spring released, the circuit closed, and the detonator ignited a fragmentation charge concealed beneath the crate. Ukrainian engineers rigged 4 crates across the position, each positioned where a curious or acquisitive soldier would naturally find and investigate them. The bunkers were prepared with a different approach. Tripwire-activated fragmentation devices, directional charges similar to claymore mines, were positioned inside the 2 main bunkers, concealed behind equipment and debris. The tripwires were strung across the entrances at ankle height, hidden under a thin layer of dirt and shadow. A soldier walking through the bunker entrance with the casual confidence of someone entering a position they believe is empty would snap the wire without seeing it. The directional charge would detonate at chest height, sending a wall of steel fragments through the confined space of the bunker at over 1,000 meters per second. Additional mines, anti-personnel devices triggered by pressure plates, were buried in the floor of the communication trench that connected the bunkers to the main fighting positions. The devices were placed at natural bottleneck points where the trench narrowed or turned, locations where any soldier moving through the trench would step on a specific patch of ground. Finally, a radio, still powered and transmitting a low-strength signal, was placed on a table inside the command bunker. The radio was bait within bait, a functioning piece of equipment that any intelligence-minded Russian officer would want to examine, sitting in a bunker that was wired to kill anyone who entered it. Ukrainian reconnaissance drones were positioned to maintain continuous surveillance of the position from the moment the staged withdrawal was complete. A Ukrainian artillery battery, 3 guns with pre-registered fire missions covering every square meter of the position, was standing by, ready to deliver the final blow once the traps had done their work. The occupation. Russian forces detected the Ukrainian withdrawal through their own drone surveillance and through the reduction in fire from the position. By noon on the day following the withdrawal, Russian infantry began cautiously approaching the abandoned Ukrainian trenches. Ukrainian drone operators watched as a reconnaissance element, approximately 8 soldiers moving in a loose patrol formation, crossed the open ground between the Russian and former Ukrainian positions. The soldiers moved carefully, checking for obvious mines and scanning the trenches ahead through rifle scopes before entering. The reconnaissance element reached the outer trench at approximately 12:20 and began moving through the position. They checked corners, peered into bunkers from the outside, and examined the abandoned BTR from a distance. Finding no obvious threats, no tripwires stretched across open areas, no visible mines on the surface, no signs of recent digging that might indicate buried explosives, the patrol leader radioed back to his company commander. The position was clear. Within 30 minutes, approximately 50 Russian soldiers had moved into the abandoned Ukrainian position. The company commander established his command post in one of the bunkers. Soldiers spread through the trenches, examining the fighting positions, checking the fields of fire, and beginning the work of adapting the captured fortifications for their own use. And the trophy teams, soldiers specifically tasked with collecting abandoned enemy equipment for intelligence analysis and personal use, began their work. The first explosion occurred at approximately 13:15. A soldier from the trophy team lifted an ammunition crate near the eastern fighting position. The pressure release detonator activated instantly. The fragmentation charge beneath the crate detonated at waist height, sending a blast of shrapnel through the soldier and 2 companions standing within 3 meters. All 3 were killed instantly. The explosion sent a shockwave through the position. Soldiers who had been casually exploring the trenches froze, then began shouting and running toward the sound of the blast. The instinctive reaction of soldiers who hear an explosion and want to help their comrades. The second explosion came 90 seconds later. 4 soldiers who had been inspecting the interior of the main bunker, one of them the company's intelligence sergeant, drawn by the abandoned radio on the table, triggered the tripwire at the entrance. The directional fragmentation charge detonated inside the bunker at chest height. In the confined concrete space, the blast effect was amplified by the walls, reflecting the shrapnel inward and creating a kill zone that no human body could survive. 4 soldiers killed instantly. The bunker entrance collapsed partially from the blast, trapping the bodies inside. Panic now gripped the position. Russian soldiers understood that the abandoned position was mined, but they did not know the full extent of the preparations. Some soldiers ran through the communication trench toward the rear exit, and 2 of them triggered the buried anti-personnel mines. The detonations in the narrow trench were devastating, the earth walls channeling the blast upward and outward, shredding the soldiers who triggered the devices and wounding others nearby with fragments of dirt, stone, and metal. The BTR was still waiting. Despite the explosions, Russian soldiers had not yet identified the vehicle as a threat. The BTR appeared to be what it looked like, a damaged vehicle left behind because it couldn't be driven. In the chaos following the bunker and trench explosions, approximately 12 to 15 soldiers congregated near the BTR, some seeking cover behind its armored hull, others trying to organize a response to the mine casualties, several officers shouting orders and attempting to establish a perimeter. The area around the vehicle was, for approximately 2 minutes, the densest concentration of Russian soldiers on the entire position. The Ukrainian operator watching through the reconnaissance drone, who had been tracking the BTR and the soldiers gathering around it with the patience of a predator watching prey approach a watering hole, pressed the detonation button. 40 kilograms of plastic explosive detonated inside the BTR simultaneously. The vehicle, which weighed approximately 17 tons even in its damaged state, was torn apart by the blast. The hull fragmented into pieces of jagged metal that flew outward at supersonic speed. The improvised shrapnel, The nuts, bolts, and ball bearings packed around the explosive scythed through the soldiers gathered around the vehicle with devastating effect. The blast wave alone was lethal at 10 meters and injurious at 25. The explosion was the largest single detonation of the entire operation. A thunderclap that shook the ground and sent a mushroom cloud of smoke, dirt, and debris rising above the position. Ukrainian drone operators captured the entire sequence. The gathering of soldiers around the vehicle, the detonation, the aftermath. The footage showed bodies thrown meters from the blast site, survivors crawling through the mud, the BTR reduced to a shattered frame barely recognizable as a vehicle. The artillery, 30 seconds after the BTR detonation, while the surviving Russian soldiers were still staggering through the smoke and dust, still trying to comprehend what had happened, Ukrainian artillery opened fire. The pre-registered fire missions had been waiting for this moment. 3 Ukrainian guns fired simultaneously, their shells arcing through the damp air and impacting across the position with metronomic precision. The first salvo struck the central area where the surviving soldiers were concentrated. The second salvo targeted the entrances and exits of the position, blocking escape routes with explosions and shrapnel. The third and fourth salvos walked across the entire position, ensuring that every trench, every bunker, and every open area received fire. The artillery bombardment lasted approximately 8 minutes, long enough to ensure comprehensive coverage of the position, short enough to avoid counter-battery response from Russian artillery that would eventually calculate the Ukrainian guns' locations. By the time the last shell landed, the position that Russian soldiers had captured 2 hours earlier was a landscape of craters, burning debris, and bodies. Damage assessment. Ukrainian drone surveillance and intercepted Russian communications provided a comprehensive loss picture that grew clearer over the hours and days following the engagement. Russian soldiers killed 25-35 from the combined effects of 4 booby trap detonations, the BTR remote detonation, anti-personnel mine blasts in the communication trench, and the 8-minute artillery bombardment that followed. The casualties occurred in distinct waves. The first 3 soldiers from the ammunition crate trap, 4 from the bunker tripwire, 2 from the trench mines, 12 to 15 from the BTR detonation, and the remainder from the artillery barrage that targeted survivors who were already wounded, disoriented, and unable to seek effective cover. Russian soldiers wounded, 20-30, many critically, with injuries consistent with fragmentation and blast effects. Burn injuries from the BTR detonation were particularly severe among the soldiers who had been standing closest to the vehicle. Medical evacuation was complicated by multiple factors. The continued mine threat within the position created paralyzing fear among medical teams who had to walk through the same trenches where their comrades had been blown apart. Russian sappers, called forward to clear a safe route for medics, moved with excruciating slowness, probing every meter of ground with bayonets and mine detectors, a process that delayed treatment for wounded soldiers who lay bleeding in trenches and bunkers for over 2 hours before help reached them. Some wounded soldiers who might have survived with rapid treatment died of blood loss and exposure in the damp spring mud while waiting for paths to be cleared. Intercepted Russian communications captured a medic's voice, shaking with frustration and anger, telling his company commander, "I can see them. I can hear them calling. I cannot reach them because every step might be my last." The commander had no answer. Equipment lost. Personal weapons, optical equipment, radios, and tactical gear of approximately 50 soldiers. Much of it damaged beyond recovery by the explosions and artillery. Engineering equipment that had been brought forward for fortification work, including timber, sandbags, and tools. A field radio that the intelligence sergeant had been reaching for when the bunker trap detonated. The radio that Ukrainian engineers had placed on the table, as bait now lay buried under the collapsed concrete of the bunker, along with the sergeant's body. Economic analysis. The financial cost of this engagement was overwhelmingly one-sided. Ukrainian expenditure, the plastic explosive, detonators, fragmentation charges, anti-personnel mines, and remote detonation system used to prepare the position cost approximately $3,000 and $5,000 in materials. The BTR-4 that served as the centerpiece was already a combat loss. Its conversion from damaged vehicle to booby trap required only the explosive charge and shrapnel packing, which cost less than $500. The artillery ammunition expended in the 8-minute bombardment, approximately 40 to 50 shells at 500 mass or $1,500 per round, cost $20,000, $75,000. Reconnaissance drone operational costs, approximately $2,000, $3,000. Total Ukrainian expenditure, approximately $25,000 or $83,000. Russian losses, 45-65 soldiers killed and wounded. At the estimated cost of mobilizing, equipping, training, transporting, and sustaining a single Russian soldier at the front, approximately $50,000, $100,000 per soldier, based on various Western intelligence estimates. The personnel losses alone represent $6.5 million in human capital destroyed. Equipment losses, personal weapons, optics, communications gear, engineering material, at approximately $200,000 and $400,000. The medical costs of treating 20 to 30 wounded soldiers, some requiring evacuation to rear area hospitals and extended rehabilitation, add an additional $500,000, $1.5 million. Total estimated Russian losses, $8.4 million. Return on investment, approximately 40 to 100 to 1. But the numbers, significant as they are, understate the true cost. The company that occupied this position, approximately 50 soldiers with their officers and NCOs, was rendered combat ineffective in a single afternoon. Rebuilding it will require replacement personnel, replacement equipment, and weeks of integration before the unit can function as a cohesive fighting force again. The battalion to which this company belonged loses approximately 1/3 of its infantry strength in one sector, a loss that cascading effects multiply across the entire formation's ability to conduct operations. Strategic implications. This operation represents a sophisticated evolution of a tactic as old as warfare itself: the booby-trapped retreat. Armies from the Romans to the Wehrmacht have poisoned wells, trapped buildings, and mined roads as they withdrew. But the integration of modern technology, remote detonated explosives that allow Ukrainian operators to choose the optimal moment for detonation based on real-time drone surveillance, reconnaissance drones that provide continuous overhead monitoring of the enemy's movements through the trap position, and pre-registered artillery fire plans that exploit the chaos created by the traps to deliver a finishing blow before the enemy can organize a response, elevates this beyond anything that previous generations of military engineers could achieve. The psychological impact extends well beyond this single engagement and well beyond this single sector of the front. Every Russian soldier on the Eastern Front who hears about this incident, and they will hear about it, through the informal soldier-to-soldier networks of frontline communication, through intercepted social media posts, through whispered conversations in bunkers and trenches that no amount of censorship or information control can suppress, will carry the knowledge with him the next time his unit advances into an abandoned Ukrainian position. Every ammunition crate he finds will be suspect. Every bunker entrance will feel like a threshold between life and death. Every vehicle left behind will carry the shadow of the BTR that stood quietly in the mud until 15 soldiers gathered around it and a Ukrainian operator pressed a button. This hesitation, this gut-level fear of the ground beneath their feet, the objects in front of their eyes and the walls around them, slows Russian advances measurably. It reduces the speed at which Russian forces can exploit genuine Ukrainian withdrawals. It forces Russian commanders to bring forward trained sappers and engineering teams for every position they occupy. Sappers who are already in chronically short supply and who are themselves at risk from the very traps they are sent to clear. Since February 2022, Russia has lost approximately 149,000 soldiers killed and wounded, over 11,600 tanks, nearly 24,000 armored vehicles. And among those losses are thousands of soldiers who died not in combat against Ukrainian defenders, but in the positions they believed they had captured, killed by the ground they thought was theirs, by the equipment they thought was abandoned, by the buildings they thought were empty. Ukraine gave Russia a gift. Russia opened it, and the gift exploded. Ukraine fights. Ukraine retreats when it chooses. Ukraine poisons the ground it leaves behind. This is Iron Front. The battlefield speaks louder than propaganda.